see you guys in the dark.
I was about 7 years old. My brother was about 10. It was well past our bedtime when our mom woke us off the couch to put us to bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was often just us three at the house for weeks at a time. Up the stairs and to the immediate right was our parents' bedroom. Going left put you in the middle of the hallway. Taking another left down the hallway led to my brother's room. The opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from our upstairs bathroom. At either end of the hallway are windowed doors we also kept locked and rarely used. The door to my end led to a balcony overlooking our front yard, and the door on my brother's end opened to our back porch. My brother and mom had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was a light sleeper, and they just wouldn't stop flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm going to try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try and scare me, or if she was actually half asleep and didn't catch it. But she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was terrified by this. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in her car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendencies towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise, because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about. She looked equally surprised, as if she had just realized something by accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night, I woke up hearing noises outside my window, and when I looked I saw a man staring into my bedroom." We went on to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running, and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. I don't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up. Tall white male, wearing a striped shirt and jeans, short dark hair, something like that. They said it matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until a few years ago, in my mid-20s, that I pieced together that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. I grew up in a middle-class family, the kind of family whose children would start out at jobs at grocery stores or coffee shops. But upon turning 18, being the black sheep of my family, I took a job at a gas station. Not a rundown or dirty one at all, but still a gas station. Customers were generally friendly, but every job had the older men who took the time out of their day to make innuendos to the more attractive girls. I never felt in danger until one night. I was working overnight, and just like any other night, badly, any customers, lots of cleaning, and keeping busy in order to not fall asleep standing up. Around 2 a.m., the phone rang, which wasn't an oddity. Some people called to make sure we were open 24 hours. I picked it up without a second thought, giving my general greeting. There was a pause, a few harsh and sharp breaths at the other end. Then, "You ignored me today." "I'm sorry, may I ask who's calling?" "You're so loved. I love you so much, and you just ignored me." He then began to sing, voice slurring from what must have been from a blood alcohol level way above the limit of sanity. "You are loved, so loved. I love you." I got scared, and without hearing another word, I hung up. I told my coworkers, and he said it was probably a joke, or some guy just wanting to scare a freshly illegal public worker. I went on with my work after my coworker gave me the button to hook onto the back of my pants that would call 911 upon being pressed. but I would still jump every time he walked behind me or the door would open. Finally, when I started to calm down again, the phone rang again. My coworker was outside, and the phone had to be answered. So hesitantly, I answered it and raised it to my ear. "You need to get out of my head." His tone was angry now, demanding, as if I had done something to him. I didn't say anything. "Get out of it. You won't leave me alone. I love you. Don't you understand?" I hung up, set the phone down. I got myself some water, telling myself that I was making it a bigger deal than it was. I was, wasn't I? Instantly, the phone rang again. In a burst of anger, I grabbed it and answered it. Without giving him a second, I demanded a reason. "What do you want from me?" I practically screamed into the phone. I was tired, annoyed, and over being afraid of a man who took to a phone as a weapon. "You seem stressed. I'm coming to see you." A click and a long dial tone greeted my eardrum as my lip began to quiver. The rest of the night, I felt like I was trapped in a box, like I didn't have enough air to breathe, like the door opening would be the end of me. But he didn't come. The phone didn't ring again. Customers came and went, each as innocent as the last, tiredly handing me cash and asking me to put it in their pumps. When my shift came to an end and the sun had risen, I felt freedom. Stepping out of the store and making my way to my car, there was a note on my front windshield. "I told you I'd come to see you. Man who called my job. Let's never meet." I live in a pretty big Midwest city, about 35 minutes north of my hometown. I live in one of the stereotypical not-so-great areas of town, which is fine with me because it's cheap and my neighbors are great. I live with my best friend and his husband. They're high-ranking Buddhist monks, so they travel a lot, which means I'm left alone in my house about 6 months out of the year. For the past month or so, I've been experiencing some really strange stuff. Not paranormal, but someone is screwing with me. A few weeks ago, 2 of my tires got slashed. Okay, fine, whatever. I have insurance and roadside assistance. A few days after that, my back window got smashed in, and spray painted across the back was the word cunt. When I walked outside the next morning, I barely noticed it, but the street lamp made it pretty obvious. Needless to say, I was really upset about this. By the way, I honestly don't have any enemies. I have like maybe 5 or 6 friends that I hang out with on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Other than that, I'm at work or home. So I went to work that day and worked through the longest day of my life. I work 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. At about 1 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number with a bunch of laughing emojis. I didn't think anything of it because, that's 2016 life. But I went home without any real worries that night and had some wine because it was a super crappy day. It wasn't until 8 p.m. that night that I started getting really scared. That same random number had been texting me sporadically throughout the day, but I didn't respond to it. However, once I was home, I got a text from the same number saying, "You look so pretty and relaxed. I hope you are enjoying that book." So I was thoroughly terrified at this point. I called my very best friend. He's been here for a few days now, and I've still had a few creepy texts that only he replies to. It stopped for a day or so, but now we're sitting here in my bedroom, and we just heard someone knock on my door. It's 11:18 p.m. on a Tuesday. My friend went to go check. As soon as he left my room, someone knocked on my window a few times. I'm honestly not sure what to do now. My best friend can't stay here for weeks, and my other best friend won't be home for another 3 months. Ugh, I hope I never have to meet this weird stalker person. I went to the police station last night after work and gave them all the information. Since there's been damage to property and the possibility of this person being in or around my house, they said it's now an active investigation. I did try Googling the number, but nothing came up because it's a cell phone, and Facebook didn't turn anything up either. After reading through a lot of PMs and comments, I tried to dissect my life as much as possible to think of who this person could be. I've narrowed my list down to only one person. I gave their name to the police as well. Hopefully this ends soon, because I'm ready to move on with my life and not be terrified of my own home. After going through my life, I think I've narrowed it down to someone that I had a short, no-commitment relationship with about 4.5 years ago. He tried contacting me about 6 or 7 months ago, but I wasn't interested in having him in a part of my life again. He not only knows where I live, but he knows where I used to live as well, because he's my mom's next-door neighbor. The police haven't been a huge help. I'm not sure what to do now. If it is him, I'm not just scared for myself, but for my mom as well. This is not the creepiest thing that's happened to me, but the most recent. I moved across the state I'm in to a larger city to be closer to my family. At the drunk request from one of my roommates, I drunkenly decided to re-download Tinder. All was well, and I was cautious not to make plans or give anyone my contact information until I was sober. One guy seemed overeager to get my Snapchat, but I figured I could always block him or report him to the police if it got too weird. The next day, the conversation got normal, so we exchanged Snapchats. All of this was right before a trip back home to make a friend's wedding cake, and I told him I wouldn't be able to meet up for at least 2 weeks. Of course, this prompted him to ask me every day, "What's up? You want to kick it?" Needless to say, if I ever did, I didn't want to anymore. I had a blast at the wedding, made it back home, and finally got around to messaging this guy back. I don't like to lie to people, so I told him I wasn't interested in hanging out anytime soon. Cue some silence finally. About a week later, he hit me up with another, "What's up?" And I said, "Not much." He then proceeded to inform me out of the blue that I only live 3 blocks away. Just check the snap map. My heart sank. I'd turned my location on while I was away and forgotten to shut it off again. I was convinced that this was it, and I would die or be injured because I was an idiot. I've dealt with more than enough nice guys who didn't have my home address to know this could turn out very, very poorly. I checked where he lived, turned my location to private, and prayed to anyone who would listen that he'd drop it. I told my roommates to be extra careful, let my family know, the whole 9 yards. Thankfully, he recently blocked me on Snap, but I don't think I'll let my guard down anytime soon. So over-enthusiastic Tinder stalker, let's not meet ever. This happened about an hour ago. My friend and I were coming back to my town after hanging out across the state line when this lady starts flashing her brights to make my friend go faster. We were going the speed limit, and it was dark and hard to see. After a while, she pulls to the side of us, and we could hear her yelling at us like a banshee through the rolled-up windows. In our state, several people have been shot over road rage, so my friend grabs her phone in case something starts going down. As she has reached the car, swerves slightly towards the lady, and she recovers. The lady screams even louder and gets behind us again, riding our bumper. We come to the first exit for the town I live in, and I told my friend to take it so that we could not have this crazy lady on our bumper again. She follows us to the exit, so I have my friend turn into a parking lot. The lady followed us, but got caught by a red light. We go to leave the parking lot back to the highway, and she is coming back on us again. Lucky a truck pulled out and blocked her vision of us, and we made a right turn when the traffic allowed on a red light, and swerved between cars to put as much distance between us as possible. We finally lost her after she had been on our tail for 11 miles. Crazy stalker lady, let's not meet. Also, if she had been lost at the first turn, I had the police phone number queued up on my phone, ready to call, just in case something had happened. I would like to start this by saying I'm a very careful person. I'm a 5'2", slim-built female. I was checking behind me when walking and never have earphones in. I had finished a night out of drinking with friends. Uber was down, and the taxi line was too long that I wouldn't have gotten home till 5 a.m. After calling some sober friends and family, I couldn't find a lift home, and the bus that goes 2 streets away from my house pulls up. I decided to go home that way. Waited in the line, a guy turned and said hi to me. Not being rude, I said hi back. I wished that I hadn't, though. The bus trip was normal. My friend was maybe 12 stops away. I got off, and the stop is next to a servo. I go in and get some water. I come out, and the man from the bus line was standing there. He walked up to me and began asking me if he could stay the night with me. Of course, I told him no, and he got visibly angry, clutching his fist and mumbling under his breath. I ran back to the servo and hid in there while the employee called a cab and looked out for me. I called my mom while waiting, and she let me in and comforted me while I cried. Before anyone says anything about what I was wearing, 4.5-inch platforms, black jeans, and a long shirt, I did not ever tell him my name or anything. Stranger that followed me home from the bus stop, let's not meet ever again. This happened when I was about 13 years old. One weekend my parents were out of town for work, so I was staying with my friend who lived across the street. Every morning I would wake up and go let the dogs out, feed them, and clean the litter box. Then my friend and I would go play for the rest of the day, sporadically checking on the house. One morning, my friend and I woke up early, still dark out, and look across the street at my house. Our electric garage door kept opening and closing all by itself, constantly, and one of the dogs runs out of the garage. I ran out and grabbed the dog. Then we watched the house for about 5 minutes before we decided to walk across the street to check on it, thinking it was a glitch. We walk across the garage where I push the button and it stops. Now to explain the house. You walk into an entryway and then the house is split level. You can go upstairs or down. We walk up flipping on lights and look around and there is nothing. Then we begin to walk downstairs. As I flip on the stair light, which has a dimmer on it, we see a shadow on the wall quickly move away from the bottom of the staircase towards the other side of the basement. My friend and I freak out and run out the door back to my friend's house, where we wake her parents to call the cops. They come and search the house. Nothing inside, however, they do find footprints in the snow all over the back deck, which wasn't shoveled, and the back door was unlocked. Nothing was missing as far as we could tell, so I cannot imagine what he wanted. I didn't step foot inside the house again until my parents came home, and even then I basically had to be bribed. Not to mention my room was down in the basement. I slept in my parents' room for 2 weeks after that. A teenager, sleeping on the floor in their parents' room. Shake my head. Man who I assume was in my house. Let's not ever meet. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.